Welcome to another episode of Progress, Potential, and Possibilities, discussions with fascinating people designing a better tomorrow for all of us. I'm your host, Ira Pastor.
Welcome, everybody, again to another episode of the show. Again, bringing you another fascinating guest today involved in creating a better technological tomorrow for all of us. Today, we are headed back to visit our friends at Microsoft and have the honor of being joined by Dr. Sadid Hasan, who is artificial intelligence lead at Microsoft and a member of their leadership team in Microsoft's new AI development acceleration program located at the Microsoft New England Research and Development Center. Dr. Hasan leads teams in order to drive state-of-the-art in artificial intelligence, developing advanced AI capabilities, products, and solutions applicable across the enterprise, as well as growing their programs for the next generation of AI leaders that hopefully make a transformational impact on the world. Previous to Microsoft, Dr. Hasan was Executive Director of Artificial Intelligence at CVS Health. They are leading teams responsible for artificial intelligence-based clinical care planning activities. And prior to that, senior scientist and technical lead in the artificial intelligence group at Philips Research North America, focusing on solving various natural language processing problems, such as clinical information extraction, clinical question answering, national language inference, and medical image caption generation using deep learning. Prior to Philips, Dr. Hasan was a Natural Sciences and Engineering Research Council of Canada postdoc fellow at the Department of Mathematics and Computer Science, University of Lethbridge in Canada, where he got his PhD in computer science with a specialization in natural language processing and machine learning. Dr. Hasan has over a dozen granted patents, 35 patents pending, and has published close to 100 different peer-reviewed publications and top NLP machine learning publications. We're honored to have him with us today to talk about some very timely topics. But Dr. Sadid Hasan, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, pleasure.
It's really great having you. You know, I took a look prior to the show at your dissertation entitled Complex Question Answering, Minimizing Gaps and Beyond, back in 2014, which, looking at this today, is kind of like a crystal ball into what's happening in the world in 2023. And, in the intro, you basically say, hey, we're pretty good at answering questions today of, who's the president of Bangladesh? But if you ask a question like, describe steps taken and worldwide reaction prior to the induction of the euro in January of 1999, natural language processing wasn't ready for that then. But here we are today. Talk about your dissertation a bit. Talk about what got you interested sort of in this space and thinking about really where we are, getting to where we are today back in 2014.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for, going into that. And it reminds me so many things. So yeah, really, I can't tell like where should I start, but yeah, so I can start with my dissertation and maybe, come back and go forward from there. So definitely like in my experience in that time when I was, working in natural language understanding in that was before the era of deep learning. So we had, at that time, the classical machine learning techniques we had, and we were trying to, before GPT came into being, before, the large language models came into being, we had, n-gram language models. So we had the idea of language models, but we didn't know that how to do it at scale and how to incorporate that into advanced machine learning, like deep learning technologies at that time. So my dissertation was, I mean, it's funny because now when I see about it, I was actually thinking when GPT came into picture and ChatGPT came into picture. So I was thinking exactly the same thing, that my thesis abstract was really pointed at to that. Like I was trying to do that, but I didn't have, I tried to push the boundaries, but didn't have that, technology back then because we didn't have that much data. And that's one of the challenges in the academia, that you don't have access to that much data. You don't have that infrastructure to build solutions. So we try to simplify the problem and attack small subset of the problems. So my dissertation was focused on, of course, complex question answering, and I was trying to attack this problem from various angles. Using the machine learning techniques available back then. So one of the things I proposed was first, and I don't know if you got a chance to see that. Like so now that now looking at the current moment, that also kind of amazes me, that I was one of the first to propose reinforcement learning formulation to complex question answering.
Yep.
And back then, one of my papers that came out in 2015 or 16, and of course, yeah, full credit to the team. I was working as part of the team, and my supervisor, Dr. Ilyas Shali, he supervised me. So in that project, we showed that when, even if you have a reinforcement learning formulation of complex question answering where, the machine is trying to explore a set of data to find out like what should be the answer to a complex question, like you pointed out, right? So if I say describe the earthquake in Turkey, basically it really has so many things in between in that question, right? So the machine learning model, the agent, has to figure out from different sentences which one is more important than the other, and then have some sort of reward function to figure out, like, okay, if I take this sentence into the summary or the answer, then would it satisfy the knowledge quest for the user? So during that paper, I pointed out, and through experiments, we suggested that if throughout this training process, if there is a human in the loop, then the results actually get improved. So that was a part of one of my SCM paper in Sikkim. So that actually you see the picture now, because large language models is solving many of the problems altogether right now, because at that time I was trying to tackle complex question answering as a separate problem as part of query focused summarization. But now using large language models, you can actually ask it to do anything, and it basically predicts the next words and sequences, and it can actually do some empowerment tasks for you to give you some foundational things, right? And through the introduction of reinforcement learning, it's showing you that how to ground the results, how to ground the answers with the facts, based on some sort of human judgment that's part of the process. So kind of grounding the answer. So it's kind of that way it is super useful in terms of capturing the human thought process, as well as learning from tremendous amount of data.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because in between then and now, as I mentioned in the intro, you published quite a bit, a lot on healthcare topics, which is of course very core to the show. And I thought, it'd be interesting to pull some of these out and just talk through some of these interesting examples of projects, once again, as the evolution of machine learning, natural language processing, and so forth has been occurring. And, one of the ones that jumped out at me, if we go a couple years forward now, is when you were at Philips in 2017. You wrote this paper entitled Adverse Drug Event Detection in Tweets. With semi-supervised convolutional neural networks. And here, you're talking about the fact that in typical adverse drug event surveillance, there's a significant time lag before we see events published, but social media was evolving and continues to evolve. In 2017, we're at a certain place. And you wrote about sort of the potential that NLP and deep learning in this context has for extracting those ADEs earlier so we can learn much quicker. Talk about sort of the genesis of this and your thinking in this project.
Yeah, sure. So definitely. So this was also, another interesting project, and Twitter became popular at that time, and you have, people notice that certain things that are shared in social media, it's much earlier than that those knowledge or best practices or guidance came through formal research processes or through FDA approvals or FDA guidance for what should we do in terms of those situations.
Yep.
And specifically this, we thought that, okay, this is important for healthcare because like I said, so we really need to make it impactful for everyone, right? So even if we could make a system that can detect any adverse drug events earlier through some tweet posts, so we should be able to make an impact with anyone who is also taking the same drug much earlier than, and they kind of used to know about that information from a formal source. So this project was really cool, and again, credit to the team, and of course I should also give credit to the entire research community, because everyone in all universities in this area, and not only in AI or machine learning area, because in all areas of the world, right? So we are making little things, and all are making impact and making sense to all of us. So it's not about science; it's in all areas of where people are involved, and we're trying to push the state of the art.
Yep.
So this is kind of a accumulation of all that knowledge and research. So for this project in the Twitter project, so we at that point deep learning was becoming very popular, right? And convolutional neural networks, we saw that it's very good at classifying things, right? Because of its the nature, the architecture is like the way you so basically you can encode the features in a way that you can actually highlight. So the model can actually know what part of the feature space is actually most important. So that is actually what is needed in a classification task, because that's the difference between classification and generative models, is because in terms of generative models, you need to understand, so the model really need to understand longer context and things beyond the input space and things like that. But for convolutional neural networks or classification tasks, you can if you can recognize part of the puzzle, you can actually classify that. So for example, like if there is an elephant in the room, right, and if the model can recognize that there's a trunk, right, in the room, it could really figure out that, okay, that's actually an elephant in the room. You don't need to see the whole elephant, and no need to encode the whole elephant as part of the model. So similar process happened in the tweet, because at that point we tried to set up a system that could crawl tweet data from the Twitter. And then we found lots of tweets with healthcare drug information. People are feeling bad, so lots of signs and symptoms involved. So we tried to take that data, and we found that, okay, these are all data sets, but there is no ground truth that we should be able to get at a large scale. So then we proposed this semi-supervised model where you could actually learn some sort of classification in an unsupervised way using convolutional neural networks, and then you could also have a very small set of levels that can be used to fine-tune the first model to come up with a system that can recognize and actually be better than other models, even the full supervised models that is trained on that small level data set. So the power of this work was, how can we learn about or how can we leverage lots of data in an unsupervised manner? So it's kind of in the future of this work, you saw people came with different other techniques, and the terminology changed. So we now call it like few shot learning, zero shot learning, right?
Yep.
And transfer learning. So this is all kind of accumulation of all those different pieces. Yeah.
Absolutely. That stood out to me as well. Yeah, no, that's fascinating. Um, Moving forward, a couple more years now, we get in 2019, and you publish again this really interesting piece on clinical trial matching, specifically focusing on improving disease name entity recognition for clinical trial matching, and talking in this context about how there are these disparities between clinical text or clinical trial related text and sort of more patient-focused reporting at the time. Obviously, even nowadays, the whole process of clinical trial matching is still, even for 2023, a little antiquated. But, once again, looking at these tools, you were several years ago thinking about even small aspects of this that you can really improve sort of recruitment and eligibility and so forth. Take us into this one, if you would.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so that's also another great work that we try to tackle, and it's still, like I said, it's not a solved problem, but very impactful problem that we see in healthcare, because lots of drugs are being invented and being researched every day, and many of them, actually I know this because my wife also works in cancer drug industry. So I see from that research that many drugs actually go through all this clinical trial process, and they don't even find the appropriate patients to test that drug with. And even they are tested, many of the results, that is also connected to the adverse drug event. So many results show that this drug is not effective, and therefore the whole research, years of research go in vain. And so that's a very lengthy process of clinical trial matching. So we try to tackle the one of the root of this problem, where the idea is like, given patient profiles, how can we really understand that what this patient is going through, what kind of disease they have, through their patient profile. So through different data that we can get in terms of the patient. So we tried to tackle the clinical notes that we had, that we collected from various hospital data sources. So the idea here is like treating this problem again as some sort of classification problem, where we try to identify the diseases and the signs and symptoms from the patient profiles, and then the same can be done on the clinical trial text, and then that would help us to find that which patient profiles would be important or appropriate for doing clinical trials. So this, we try to do it at scale, because there are several solutions I think people use right now based on this work. As far as I can tell, that many of the solutions actually went into production, but still there needs lots of human and clinician involvement. So there are lots of manual process involved as part of that. So we try to automate that process. That how can we digest millions of patient profiles and then automatically find that, okay, these patients are actually suffering from these diseases, and similarly these are the drugs that are being tested on similar diseases from the clinical trial text, and automatically find matching. So we propose some algorithm to improve the named entity recognition, basically the disease name entity recognition from the text. That actually at that time in 2018 and 19, it was the state of the art for the disease named entity recognition. So we showed, through use of various techniques and bidirectional RNNs and LSTM based models, in addition to convolutional neural network models. So basically we merged both the best of both convolutional neural networks and the RNN recurrent neural networks, because recurrent neural networks, they're good at finding the information based on a context, and it can remember longer sequential context. And CNNs, they're better at classification. So we merge the both, because sometimes in longer text, it's very, even if you can do good in classification, you still need to understand longer context, because this is, patient profiles, right? So you have to detect negations. So some of the times, in clinical notes, it says that this is patient's history, right? Some of the diseases they had in their, family profile, but we can't say that, okay, that's the patient is going through right now, right? So those all we took into account, and we showed that the best of both worlds are actually better than, the individual algorithms. Yeah.
Yep. So, see, moving on from that one, and then we'll get into Microsoft. But one other place I wanted to go, just because I'm a pharmacist by undergraduate training, and
Yes.
when I went to pharmacy school, things were still about putting pills from big bottles into little bottles. Although we were told at the time, back in the late '80s, that it's not, pharmacy is not just pharmacy anymore; it's disease management. It's a whole lot more, and clearly, that has happened. Pharmacy is a lot different than it used to be. And, I'd love to just talk for a couple of minutes, if you would, about, one of your papers at CVS, which has to do with really, using machine learning to identify effective healthcare guidelines for diabetics. And here you're doing everything. You're crunching claims and social determinants of health and just biomarker, everything into this unique machine learning model to ultimately do what has been said is the future of pharmacy, which is disease management proactively. You say a few words about sort of your experience in sort of the new pharmacy world and with using these machine learning techniques.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's also a very, very good question. So definitely, like, my experience in CVS Health, in that experience includes lots of various defined data sources that we see across the care continuum. So that was like a wonderful opportunity for me when I joined CVS Health to leverage that data set from the pharmacy side, then also from the claims side, because many of the things, if we take some service from some hospitals and then some medications, all those claims go through the insurance claims data. So basically that data set also a huge, piece of the puzzle. So basically we wanted to, get the full picture of our, people, right, who take services for us. So who are in their healthcare journey, because, all of us sooner or later, or every day, I would say, somehow we are connected with, as part of our healthcare journey, right? Even though it's like, is it preventive care or primary care or, hospital or pharmacy, all through that. So we had that, luxury of a huge data from all different parts of the patient journey. And we tried to, come up with meaningful solutions. So for this paper that you're pointing out, so we tried to, figure out the ADA guidelines from diabetes disease, and trying to find out that what are the guidelines that would be actually impactful in terms of the patient's profiles and journey, so that they can actually so we can actually have some. So we showed through some experiments that which one could be tied more in terms of adherence to some of the guidelines that are given by ADA. And on top of that, so we also did some work in terms of generating some recommender system that would tell like, given a patient profile, we actually, this model was to predict that what should be done for this patient if this patient doesn't do all those things that the machine learning model is recommending. Then in the next 6 months there is a very good likelihood that this person would end up in urgent care or in ICU, emergency care. So that was how we developed this model, and of course once we deployed this model, there were clinicians in the loop. So for example, the model was predicting that this person needs a diabetes foot exam visit within next month. This person needs to take this medication for this month because the model found that this medication was not properly taken in the past few months. So things like that. And the clinician used to review the recommendations generated by the model, and of course, no model is 100% perfect. So that was the purpose of having clinician in the loop, so they could agree to the recommendations generated by the model, and then once they agree, then only they could reach out to the patients who had insurance plans with us, to guide them proactively that you should do this to prevent yourself to be going to urgent care in the next 6 months. So things like that. So the whole value proposition of this is like, to the point of your question, like, it's really huge impact, because the goal was, how can we make our patients more knowledgeable, right? So they can take care of their own health in a more timely manner, and that in that process, the whole healthcare system cost would also come down, right? So it's kind of win-win from across the whole healthcare journey.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I appreciate you walking through that part of the story, because it's near and dear to me again as a pharmacist, and it's just refreshing in 2023 to see sort of the progress that is being made on that front, and sort of this transformation. So no, that's awesome. So now we come to Microsoft. You've made your journey here now, and we've had the honor to profile different members of the Microsoft organization, sort of working on some of the different AI projects. Tom Laurie from the North American healthcare business. Arati Setumadhavan, talked to us a little bit about user research and sort of the ethical principles behind AI at Microsoft. You're in a very unique organization. It looks like the organization is not just sort of doing groundbreaking work sort of across AI per the Microsoft AI Development Acceleration Program, but you really are creating sort of this next generation of leaders, and everything from PhDs like yourself to early bachelor degree folks, getting involved early at some of these really cutting edge areas. Could you take us through a little bit of sort of the New England R&D Center, specifically, what's called MyDOP, or Microsoft AI Development Acceleration Program, and a little bit about sort of what your day-to-day is all about nowadays at Microsoft?
Yeah, sure. So so definitely, let me take you a little bit back, like on my career journey, like why I joined this. So that would give you some context of this place. So of course, like when I finished my my postdoc and PhD, my entire career journey was focused on how can I make most impact based on what I have learned. So at that point, immediately I thought that healthcare is traditionally a little bit behind than any other industry in terms of adopting AI technologies, because of its unique challenges, right? In terms of who would be responsible, right? If there is an AI model giving predictions, and if the prediction is wrong, who would be responsible, right? Is it who developed the model, or is it who is using the model? So there are those concerns there, but I can see that now it's so much better, and from FDA, from AI guidelines posted by White House. So all those different entities, they are pushing the boundaries of AI, and also the clinicians, they're going more into having trust into AI models. So that was kind of my cue, that once I had spent about 10 years in the healthcare industry and pushing the boundaries of AI and adoption, and then I came to know about this opportunity in Microsoft, where I found that, okay, this is something very interesting, because so far I have been working in a team. I was trying to push boundaries, and but this is really where I can multiply myself. Okay, so, and that actually attracted me in this program. So Microsoft AI Acceleration Development Program, where it's unique because we take in the new graduates from the New England region in focused on that region. And these people, they're tremendously talented and smart, and very much well accustomed with the state-of-the-art AI technologies. So the goal here is like we bring them in, and then in a 2-year rotational program, they work with about 4 product teams during this time. So basically, they transform their knowledge, AI knowledge, into those products, and we build AI solutions across those different products and solutions to improve the user experience. And throughout this time, they also gain exposure on those different products. And once the 2-year program is finished, they choose to join one of those product teams. So basically, we are cultivating this group of talented individuals, and they are working with in the real world, bringing their academic knowledge into the industry. So that's why we are part of the Office of Applied Research. So our whole org is trying to bring in the new technology advances and knowledge to bring into our products, really making it at scale, so that we can empower people at scale throughout the whole world, right? So that's kind of the goal. And then once these people finishes their 2-year rotational program, so they go into the product team. So basically, that's how our vision is to transform the whole company into a AI first company who are knowledgeable and accustomed with the state-of-the-art AI technology. At the same time, we are making the most impact on the world with all these technologies.
And and we'll put the link to the site obviously in the bio to the show. But when you go into sort of the portfolio, you got a lot of stuff going on, everything from bike parking predictions, AI in gaming, this really cool thing called Deep Murals, which has to do with complex images. Any specific project that you'd love to highlight? I don't know if it's healthcare or whatever, anything you're working on currently that you can say a few words about that is not confidential.
Yeah, that's actually pretty hard because
Don't worry about that.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah, so because many of the things we are doing, it's really very early stage, and
sure.
But I can tell you like one. I mean, I shared also in my LinkedIn. I think a few weeks back. So one work we did recently, and again, it's it's again trying to empower various solutions as part of that program. So one of the most used software in the world is of course Microsoft Word.
Yep.
So with our solution, what we did is we noticed that there are many people who still uses Microsoft Word, but they don't save their documents into the cloud. Okay, so basically these people they save their documents locally in the machine. So we actually had we had something in mind to improve their experience. So we created a solution called Smart Save Reminders. So basically it's kind of when people are working with their Word file, and then if the solution automatically recognizes that it's time for them to save something because something may happen in the device, and I don't know, this device might be restarted, and they might have a chance to lose this file if they don't save it right now. So that's when the machine learning model gives them reminder to save their file. So this is kind of a feature that we brought in recently, which went to various users, and as we soon make it available for the world. But I wanted to bring you some example like what we are doing. Of course, we are working with the new advanced technologies, and hopefully we could share more on that in the future.
We'll definitely do a follow up on that. But I completely understand sort of the early stage confidential nature of what you're up to. So now that's much appreciated. Sid, while I have you, obviously while we're having this chat, obviously one of the hottest themes out there now is of course ChatGPT, part of your organization, and if you could say a few words about this. Obviously, if we loop back to your 2014 dissertation, A lot has come true. What excites you personally? And then if thinking about ChatGPT technology and healthcare specifically, I know that, there's a lot of discussion chat in the ether about where this fits in terms of consumer healthcare decisions, in terms of clinicians. Take us through just a little your future thinking about ChatGPT and healthcare, if you would, and ChatGPT in general.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is really an interesting topic, and you can see the excitement across the whole world, and people are really using it, and I'm using it as part of of our work, and as well as I don't know if you saw the new Bing, right?
Yep,
the new
sure.
Bing, yeah. So definitely you can see at scale and how it is useful. So taking you back from my the PhD dissertation. So like at that point, and even like how GPT or these large language models actually disrupted the research, AI research, tremendously, is because it's like at that point, 10 years back, we used to think about all different problems as separate problems, right? So trying to simplify the problem, like I said, like giving some examples like classification or summarization. I had also some seminal papers on paraphrase generation, which is also very deep to my heart. Is like, if I tell you something, right, and the same thing you can explain in different set of words and sentences, right? So that's the idea of paraphrasing, right?
Okay.
So I considered, we in our team, we considered that as a different problem to solve, paraphrase generation. Then there was also a problem like text simplification that we tackled also for healthcare. A given clinical note, the use case was that patients don't really understand the clinical jargons, right? Because there are so many difficult words for layman people to understand. So we proposed a solution. Okay, how do you simplify clinical notes so that patients can understand and adhere to the instructions given in maybe discharge summaries or prescriptions written by the clinician. So I'm giving you all this example because at that point of time, 10 years back, we used to think very focused on different problems in that, and we used to come up with different specified focused model for all those tasks. But GPT-like and the transformer-based models, the large language models, changed the game totally on that angle. That is really, I don't want to go in direction of like it's really like human or not, but it's kind of just to give you an analogy that like we have our own model, right? So we try to learn language from our childhood, and we try to understand everything. We don't have different head or something, right, to do different tasks at the different time. So similarly, language model is kind of change this this paradigm. Is like you can basically ask it anything, so any problem now can be solved or considered as a question answering problem, right? Or a chat type problem where you ask something and you get something in return and in terms of solution. So that's changed the game in terms of having it as a prompt type scenarios, right? So many of the things now happen based on how do you extract the best of from the large language model. So it's kind of similar type of thing, right? So if we as a human, if we join a company and then try to do some work and task, so definitely our goal is to be a better version of ourselves every day.
Yep.
Right? And similarly, the large language models is using all these interactions and reinforcement learning with human feedback to improve its knowledge and experience. So it's like so from that angle, I wanted to highlight the change.
Yep.
And so many of the research is now going on. Okay, how do you ask the question and generate the prompt that you will get the best possible way for the large language models to react. And then the other thing I wanted to point out is like the programming, right? So many of the, if you look at scientists in the AI domain and software developers, right? So you need to learn a specific programming language. Let's say if you want to build your own website, or you want to build a game or an app, you need to learn some sort of programming language to develop something like that, right? But what GPT-like and ChatGPT, what changed this paradigm in a way that your programming language is now whatever language you speak, right? So basically it's another layer of human level language. So you can actually now ask anything in English or in any other language that that ChatGPT can actually understand, and that way it's one additional layer of complexity got removed with this kind of technologies. And you'll see like there are many new models are also coming up, where the direction I see is in terms of this is a text-based model, right? But the whole world is not text-based. So definitely you'll see DALL-E was also came from OpenAI, so that's image text to image generation. So eventually we are all trying to reach the holy grail of AI, right? So that's the bottom line is like the definition that I learned 30 years back is like AI models or AI machines are something that always try to mimic how human act, right? So it's like trying to understand the perception of words from different modalities, and then trying to have all those pieces of the puzzle in one single model that can understand and see and and deliver. It can listen now, have speech models. So all that would be incorporated. So that's kind of the the next generation where the modality doesn't matter, but you could really extract the best out of a model like that.
It's going to be an interesting future. Really, I appreciate you giving us an insight there. Sadid, I noticed, when I was sort of reading up on all that you've been doing, that in 2022, you were, aside from what you're doing in-house, you're also doing a lot of public-facing stuff, sort of on the conference circuit. You were at this workshop, NeurIPS 2022, on tackling climate change with machine learning, workshop on clinical natural language processing, clinical NLP 2022. What's coming up for 2023? Any upcoming public-facing conferences, other initiatives, places that we can watch you, listen to you, meet you possibly on the ML, NLP circuit? Anything else you want to mention while we have you?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, definitely many of those are still in in discussion because only constant in our life is the time, right? So however, yeah, so definitely I'm involved with the like I would be still involved in the tackling climate challenge as part of NeurIPS workshop. So I wanted to highlight that because many of the things we are doing and lots of these models we are generating, these has implication with the climate too. So I also wanted to be involved in that area where we could figure out like how can we minimize the climate impact. So as part of that, we had one publication in 2022. I mentored one student. So there we are trying to bridge the gap between climate and healthcare, because that has huge implication, right? So why we want to reduce the impact of climate, because that has an impact on health and direct impact on all of us.
Absolutely.
So I'd be involved in that, and then I'm also involved in some of the dissemination activities. I like mentorship, so I'm part of Data Science for All mentorship program. So there, as part of that, we try to disseminate what we have learned, our industrial knowledge, to different like people of different backgrounds, and with less privileged backgrounds. So we try to empower and foster all this knowledge, so that because that's also important part, because knowledge, if it shouldn't be, centralized to, a selected population. So from that point of view, I'm trying, my best to, disseminate and have an impact on that area, because that also has direct impact on everything that, ChatGPT and GPT is learning, because everything is learning from data, right? So we have to, have that balanced society where all different opinions and all different, perspectives are taken into account. So, it's like, the whole circle. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's very refreshing to see, you working on the cutting edge, and at the same time your passion for mentorship. It's very impressive, and I just, I really wish you and the team the best with all this. It's a very exciting set of programs. Again, for everybody who's going to be listening to this particular episode of our show across the various podcast networks or watching on the YouTube channel, again, you've been listening to Dr. Sadid Hasan, artificial intelligence lead at Microsoft, member of the leadership team of the Microsoft AI Development Acceleration Program, doing really amazing things, not just to advance AI capabilities, but to empower this next generation of artificial intelligence leaders to, as they say, transformational impact to the world. Sadid, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to come talk to us and educate us about some of these themes. Obviously, thank you for doing what you do. And as we like to say on our show here, thanks for helping to create a better tomorrow for so many people via what you do for the development of people and these technologies.
Thank you, Vera. Yeah, really appreciate it. And thank you for having me.
Great having you.